Okay, let's take another look at a scene I'm building in iCLONE 5. And pretty much everything will work in iCLONE 6, as I have said. But let's take it kind of piece by piece and see how the scene was built up. First, typically we have our terrain. And so here's our terrain that was modeled, I believe, in a program called View. You could model these terrains in a number of programs. I added some textures here to create some strange looking surface shapes, but certainly we weren't going to concentrate on the terrain in this particular shot, just needed a backdrop. The next little main set piece was the what I'll call the temple pool, and this is a pool that's going to allow me to put some water in here, and did this, as I remember, in SketchUp, a little free version of SketchUp, and allowed me to make a very simple basic shape and then textured it once again with various sundry textures to create a ruined temple pool, as it were. Let's take a look at some more objects. This is an object found on 3D Warehouse. Very cool, once again, ruined temple arch. So I positioned that. I added a second one over here. As I remember, I resurfaced these with some different textures than what they originally came with. Found another prop. Castle wanted it off in the distance, so that was off of the 3D Warehouse as well. Great source of 3D models to use. And set that in the distance, and then populated various surfaces here around the pool with some other objects from 3D Warehouse. These are some stone blocks, bricks I was able to get from the warehouse. This is a little simple wall that I made, as I remember, in SketchUp. I added a few of those around, and added some more rocks, and this is a object from iCLONE. It's called a water type, and I gave it a color. It already had some animation, so you can see, and there's some particle effects, of course, going on there as well. And let's look. We have some more. We have a pillar. This is a cool object I found at the 3D Warehouse. These pillars, and so I added these pillars around once again just to give some more shape to the fountain and the ruins around the fountain where the confrontation will take place. And there we go. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of other props that we utilized. We have a torch. There we are. Torch holder. I kind of made this in a program, as I remember. There are prop packs, I think, that have torches. But they're pretty easy to make utilizing the particle effects. So we stuck a few torches around to simulate some potential lighting, where lighting might be coming from. So we got the torches going there. Now let's look at a couple of other items. The sky. This was a image I found on cgtextures.com and utilized this particular image right there in my sky for a setting sun effect in the shot. And then, of course, we had some trees, and planted some trees and some vines. These are from one of the Biosphere packs from Real Illusion, which have some nice vines. And the cool thing about them, they will kind of animate and gently move, which is kind of cool. Gives them a little bit of realism, so that's kind of a neat effect as far as the plants go. And of course the trees will gently blow in the wind. Okay, so we've got that going. We've got some of our particle effects, as we mentioned. We've got a particle effect going here in the pool. The green life-giving glows are bubbling there in the water, so that's coming up. Gives our skeletons the life force. So that's the basic props. Visually, one thing I did work with on this particular setup was the fog, and added some fog here, and you can see it there. Now let me turn off this light. I've one downside of working with iCLONE 5 is that you only have 5 lights that are available to cast shadows and 5 lights, point lights, that do not cast shadows. So you have to be rather creative and judicious with your use of your lights. So it can get a little tricky, but it forces you to be somewhat creative, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. The beauty part of iCLONE 6 is now we have pretty much unlimited lights. So now we've got more of a moonlight effect, but with the fog, you'll notice that the fog opens up the shadows a little more in the background, which is kind of cool. And that was a very important aspect of what we were doing. So once again, let's turn off the fog, and you notice the blacks go really black. But when you turn fog on, change that contrast, and it brings up some of the shadow detail, which is kind of cool too. Okay, let's get our light back on so we can see what we're doing. And let's talk about how we set up the battle for the 2 avatars, the jungle girl and the skeleton. I used a path right here, and I parented that path. I attached it to a dummy object, which I could move around and tweak position-wise if I needed to. So that helped me there. I also created dummy objects on the path, and then I attached my avatars to those dummy objects. So I could tweak their positioning maybe a little bit easier for the battle sequence. But this way they can walk the same path and meet and then have the battle. And of course, being dummy objects, Control D will turn those off. And of course the path does not render. But being able to have the path and the avatars follow that path, and then I could control kind of where they meet and make sure things could get them close enough. So adding these dummy objects pretty much helped by attaching the avatar to the dummy. The dummy is then moving along the path for each of the avatars there, and that helps a little bit with positioning for the battle. Pretty much got our lights in place. I had a lot of camera angles in this particular sequence, so pretty much had to relight for each camera setup. As you can see here, there we are. These are all the different camera angles. Had a bunch. So, and with a limited supply of lights in iCLONE 5, which is certainly taken care of in iCLONE 6, I had to reuse the light positions and reset them for each camera. So that makes it a little tricky, but not a big deal. Now, also in this scene, I'm going to show you the importance of the fog that I chose to use, because turning on the fog gave me just a little bit of detail in those shadowed areas, which I wanted. Didn't want a lot, just a little bit. Instead of going totally black, as you can see, a little less contrast, and that was kind of cool too. So also, let's turn on the dummies, and here we are, dummy objects here, and you can see as we're going along here, we'll turn on the path. There we go, and now you can see a little bit more how we lit this particular shot, and then how we changed. See the particle effect going with the skeleton there. Jungle girl moving into place, and then the battle begins. As I said, I changed the lighting depending on my camera position, because like for this particular shot that I had a camera pretty much in this position, wanted to make sure we had a nice shadow of the skeleton on the wall there, and so repositioned the light for there. Used one of the spot point lights over here on certain walls for the torches, so we could have the torches casting their light. So gives you an idea of how we set up that particular scene.